That morning still feels unreal when I replay it in my head. I was standing in my driveway, coffee in hand, enjoying the calm start to the day, when I heard the deep, unmistakable growl of my Lamborghini Aventador coming to life without me anywhere near the keys. My stomach dropped. I looked up just in time to see a teenage boy, maybe 16 or 17, sliding into the driver's seat, as he belonged there. He moved with shocking confidence, like this wasn't theft, but a scheduled appointment. The way he adjusted himself behind the wheel, gripping it with satisfaction, almost felt rehearsed, like he had imagined this moment over and over. But nothing prepared me for what he said next. "Relax," he grinned casually. "My mom said she can take whatever she wants. This is ours now." For a second, I couldn't even process the words. My Lamborghini, the car I had spent years grinding for, sacrificing weekends and sleep for. The physical proof of every risk I took and every early morning I endured was being claimed like it was a borrowed lawn chair. The nerve of it was staggering. I stepped forward, steadying my voice. "Get out of my car, right now." He didn't budge. Instead, he pressed the accelerator, revving the engine aggressively, and looked at me like I was trespassing on his property. Time slowed. I could see it in his eyes, the arrogance, the certainty that he was protected by some invisible shield of privilege. People always talk about wealthy families acting untouchable. I'd heard the stories, but seeing it unfold in my own driveway felt surreal. My phone was already in my hand. I dialed 911 before he could shift into drive. He laughed. Actually laughed. "It's just a car," he said. "My mom will handle it, handle it." The words ignited something inside me. I imagined what could happen if I hesitated: scratches down the side, damage to the transmission, maybe even a reckless chase down the street. But I wasn't powerless. I had security cameras. I had documentation. And most importantly, I had the law. Then he did the unthinkable. He tried to pull off. The tires screeched against the concrete as I grabbed the door handle, instinctively trying to prevent him from moving. The engine roared violently, echoing down the street. Curtains twitched in nearby windows. Neighbors stepped onto porches. It was no longer some ridiculous dare. It was an attempted theft, happening in broad daylight. My mind raced. How could someone so young be this reckless? Within minutes, sirens pierced the air. One of my neighbors had called the police after witnessing the chaos unfold. The flashing lights reflected off the polished body of my car. The boy's confidence cracked instantly. The smirk vanished. His hands went up before the officers even reached the door. By the time they opened it, he was pale and shaking. The bravado that had fueled him moments earlier had evaporated. And just like that, reality hit him. He was arrested on the spot. My Lamborghini remained untouched, the engine settling into a soft idle as if mocking his failed attempt. The entire situation felt surreal, infuriating, yet strangely satisfying. Justice had arrived quickly and decisively. When the patrol car drove away, I thought it was over. I genuinely believed the worst part of the day had passed. I couldn't have been more wrong. My phone rang almost immediately. The caller ID displayed a name that made my jaw tighten. Karen, his mother. "Do you have any idea who you're dealing with?" she demanded, her voice thick with superiority. "My son can do whatever he wants. You've made a huge mistake." I stood there, staring at my car, trying to comprehend the audacity. I had just watched her son attempt to steal my vehicle, and somehow, I was the villain? I kept my tone level. "Your son tried to take my car. That's a crime. The law doesn't care who he is." Silence lingered on the other end. Then she laughed. A sharp, chilling sound. "You don't understand," she replied. "Our influence. Our inheritance. We always get what we want. You'll regret pushing this." It was obvious she lived in a world where money rewrote consequences, where rules were optional for the privileged. Entitlement wasn't just accepted, it was taught. But here's what she didn't realize. Some rules cannot be bent, especially when there's clear evidence and law enforcement already involved. The rest of my day was spent filing formal reports, providing statements, and reviewing security footage that captured every second of the incident. Watching it back was almost unbelievable. His casual stride toward the car, the grin, The moment he tried to drive off, it was absurd, infuriating, and strangely theatrical. By afternoon, word had spread through the neighborhood. Neighbors stopped by, some shaking their heads, others barely hiding their shock. Apparently, Karen's family had a reputation. Stories of entitled behavior and intimidation weren't new, but this time had crossed a serious line. Seeing it happen in my driveway made everything different. It wasn't gossip anymore, it was criminal. What struck me most was the larger lesson buried beneath the chaos. Entitlement isn't harmless. When someone grows up believing they're immune to consequences, they can make dangerously reckless choices. And when reality finally hits, it hits hard. By evening, I received confirmation from the police. He had been formally charged, and the case was moving forward. For the first time all day, I felt calm. Justice wasn't theoretical. It was unfolding in real time. I thought that would be the final chapter of the ordeal. Then my phone buzzed again. Another message from Karen. This time, when her message came through, the tone had shifted. The sharp superiority was gone. In its place was something thinner, tighter panic barely disguised as authority. It was obvious that her son's arrest had cracked the illusion she'd built around herself, the belief that she could manipulate any outcome. I read the message twice. She wasn't threatening this time. She was probing, testing, and I knew one thing for certain: this wasn't finished. If she decided to make another move, it wouldn't be subtle. It would be dramatic. The next morning, I stepped outside, hoping, for once, to breathe normally again. The driveway was quiet. The air felt still. My Lamborghini Aventador gleamed exactly where I had left it. Then I saw it. A glossy black SUV crept to a stop at the end of my driveway. My chest tightened instantly. The windows were darkly tinted, hiding whoever sat inside. But I didn't need a clear view to know who it was. Moments later, the driver's door opened. Karen stepped out. She wasn't alone. Two broad-shouldered men followed her, dressed in a way that suggested they were there to intimidate rather than converse. She marched toward me, heels striking the pavement with sharp, deliberate clicks. Her expression was a volatile mix of rage and disbelief. "This is absurd," she snapped, waving her phone as if it were evidence of authority. "You had no right to call the police on my son." I kept my posture steady. "Your son tried to steal my Lamborghini. That's a crime. That's why he was arrested. It's that simple." Her jaw tightened. "Do you know who I am? Who is my family? We don't lose. And we don't forget." The irony was almost laughable. A grown woman standing in my driveway, making dramatic declarations over her teenager's reckless choices. But intimidation has a way of working even when it's absurd. Neighbors began stepping outside. Phones were raised. Whispering rippled through the street. What had started as a personal conflict was now a public theater, entitlement clashing with consequences in broad daylight. Karen's frustration escalated. She leaned toward my car, snapping photos through the window, as if documentation alone could transform ownership. "This vehicle should belong to us," she barked. "Do you even understand how much money we have?" I took a step closer, voice steady, but sharper now. "Money doesn't buy someone else's property. Take as many pictures as you want. This car is mine, and it will remain mine." The situation teetered on the edge when one of the men moved toward the driver's door and tugged at the handle. Instinctively, I stepped in front of it. "Stop," I said firmly. "This is private property. Back away." For a suspended second, everything froze. Even the murmurs from the neighbors quieted. Karen stared at me as though she couldn't comprehend resistance, as if no one had ever refused her before. But reality had already shifted. There were witnesses, police reports, video evidence. She couldn't undo that. Eventually, she spun around and stormed back to the SUV, muttering threats under her breath. The two men followed, no longer towering, just silent and deflated. The SUV pulled away. I exhaled slowly. My car was untouched. My driveway is intact. But what lingered wasn't fear, it was realization. People who grow up believing the world bends for them can act boldly, even recklessly. Yet when confronted with consequences, that confidence fractures fast. That confrontation marked a turning point. Karen had attempted to dominate the narrative. Instead, she had exposed herself publicly, and it still wasn't over. A few days later, the police called with an update. The charges were official: attempted theft, trespassing, and reckless endangerment. Even more telling, her threats during the driveway confrontation were documented in the report. The law wasn't just protecting my Lamborghini, it was drawing a line. News traveled fast through the neighborhood. The story exploded into full-blown gossip. A teenage boy attempting to claim a Lamborghini as his own. A public confrontation. Recorded threats. Witnesses stepped forward willingly. Videos circulated. Statements reinforced every detail. Then came Karen's final attempt at control. She contacted attorneys. She tried leveraging social connections. There were hints of civil threats and behind-the-scenes maneuvering. None of it mattered. The evidence was airtight. Security footage, police documentation, eyewitness accounts. There was no room for narrative manipulation. The court hearing was tense. Karen and her son sat side by side, both visibly shaken. The judge, a composed, no-nonsense woman, addressed them directly. "No one is above the law," she said firmly. "Not because of age. Not because of wealth. Not because of influence." Attempted theft was serious. Intimidation was unacceptable. The decision came swiftly. Her son received a formal conviction, probation, and mandatory community service. Karen was issued a strict warning against harassment and ordered to stay away from my property. It was decisive. Public. Final. Watching entitlement crumble in a courtroom was surreal. But what stayed with me wasn't the satisfaction, it was the clarity. Privilege might create confidence. It doesn't erase accountability. A week later, my Lamborghini sat exactly where it belonged, shining under the morning sun. Every flawless panel reflected more than just light. It reflected a lesson. I would never forget the image of that teenager gripping my steering wheel as if ownership could be claimed by arrogance. Nor would I forget his mother's certainty that money could override law. Both had learned. Otherwise, their reputation in the neighborhood changed overnight. What had once been whispered admiration for wealth turned into cautionary conversation. The story became a reminder. Arrogance can roar loudly, but justice speaks with authority. The car remained mine. The lesson was delivered, and the illusion of being untouchable had been permanently shattered. If you enjoyed this unbelievable Karen story, make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support truly helps this channel grow, and trust me, there are even more jaw-dropping stories coming soon. Don't miss them.